Big welcome to everyone. Thank you for joining us here live for today's webinar. My name is Karina and I'll be your host. The topic of today's webinar is going to be about the upcoming demise of third-party cookies, the cookieless world. And of course, this is going to be having a huge impact for advertising for all brands who currently rely on third-party cookies. As you probably know, I'm sure you know, Google plans to start the demise of third-party cookies as of January next year, leading to complete demise by the end of next year. So big changes are coming, which is why we're here today to talk about them. And we're going to look at it from the perspective of the whole marketing funnel. We're going to be discussing gaps or leaks caused by the lack of the information caused by the third-party cookies and how potentially we can fix them. And with this, I would like to also invite our speakers on stage, and I'm very happy to have here two of our in-house experts. Tomas Salfischberger, our founder and CEO. Hi, Tomas. I see you joining in.
Good afternoon. Thanks for the intro.
And Tomas is going to give us the introduction of this topic. And he's going to look at it from the whole marketing funnel, discussing those gaps and potential solutions that we currently have. And we have Richard Jonkoff. He's our head of customer success and strategy. And Richard is a person who leads our customers and helps them on a daily basis to prepare with the potential demise of third-party cookies to adapt for this cookieless world. And he's going to be here to answer all of your questions and to answer the questions that we received leading up to the webinar in the last few weeks. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you, Karina. Good to be here.
Really happy to have you guys. Without further ado, I think some last admin things for everybody here. You already saw we have a chat. The chat is going to be private, so feel free to ask all your questions during the session. Me, Thomas, and Richard I'm gonna see them, but they're going to be private. So no worries about anything that you ask about, and we're going to answer them in the end of the session. So I think we can get started. And to open today's session, we wanted to actually see how ready everyone here today is for the demise of third-party cookies. And we have a little poll. I'm going to activate it in a few moments. Give me a sec. Yes, here it is. So we're asking everyone today, how ready are you for the demise of third-party cookies? And you can see the possible results. A, yes, we already have some solutions. B, a little bit, mostly still orienting. C, we haven't done any preparation yet, or I have no idea. So you can be honest. Again, it's completely anonymous, but we just want to see where everybody is. I think this was the poll that we also asked during our previous webinar, so a couple of months back, and it's good to see how things are going. I think back then we had a bit more people answering with D, nothing to be ashamed of. And now we see that if I look at the answers, that actually quite a lot of people already are orienting, which is great, 52%. 37 says we already have some solutions. That's great. Also, please share what you have in the chat. It's going to be really interesting for the discussion. And only 7% say that they haven't yet started. Well, then this webinar is a good starting point. And with this in mind, I would like to give the floor to Thomas.
Yeah, thank you very much. And it's encouraging that the numbers of people that have something is going up, because when we talked about this topic 2 months ago, it looked more worrying. So that's good to see. I wanted to kick off with a little bit of an introduction on how we got here, and this background picture is more about the old days, right? If you look at the non-digital side of marketing and traditional face-to-face shops, people used to be quite delighted when a shop owner recognized them, remembered them. If you come somewhere every week, you would be sort of expecting a more personalized service. You'll be expecting people to remember what you bought last week and sort of come up with it. And then came the digital side that all of us here today are a part of. And I think we have to be brutally honest, we made a bit of a mess of it, right? This is the early days of the internet, what we did in terms of banners, pop-ups, ads all over the place. Quite untargeted, quite irrelevant. Overall, I would say messy. And then over time, if we look at current digital interactions, they've become way better. And a big part of making things a lot better is that we have become a lot more targeted. So we're no longer trying to tell random people that they've won a prize. We're showing them products that actually interest them. Things are targeted by interest groups. Things are segmented more. Contextual information is used so that the overall quality of advertising has gone up. And interestingly, the number has actually decreased a bit while the industry has grown quite a lot, which I think is a testament to things working out better overall. But that better overall is very much based on understanding our users and understanding the interactions they have and understanding the path that they've taken. So from sort of that, let's say, traditional shop with a face-to-face view, currently the ad tech industry is looking at traces of users moving different places, looking at their behavior, looking at similar behavior, especially with more and more AI and advanced algorithms plugging into those things. All of these platforms are becoming better at figuring out who are we talking to and who are we reaching. However, a huge part of that is based around third-party cookies. Nearly all of the audience data is a lot of lookalike targeting, a lot of behavioral and trace information is all linked to third-party cookies. And that is a problem for the future because this picture is one we took at the end of September, so it's nearly 2 months ago. The Mexico 2023 in Cologne, very big. And on stage is Anthony Chavez, the VP of Product Management and Privacy Sandbox at Google. So he has a quite, I think, challenging role in the current times. And he had 3 numbers. He said 100% of the Chrome browsers already actually have the Privacy Sandbox technologies available today, and that's 2 months ago. He said 100 days, and he was rounding up until the start of the sunsetting of cookies. And this picture being 2 months ago, currently, I just looked it up, we have 38 days to go until the sunsetting starts. So things are getting close. And that, I think, is a key part of his message at the Mexico was very much the last number. There are 0 days left before you really should start to prepare. And while looking at the poll results from the audience today, we have some people with some solutions. That's still only 1/3 of the group we're here with. So I think we as an industry need to start hurrying up and start to move, because this change is going to be quite rapid and it can be quite dramatic if solutions are not put in place fast enough. So to give you a bit of a view on when and why is this happening. If you look at the timelines, opt-in testing is starting already. It's live today. Browsers already support these technologies, and that first 1% disabling of the third-party cookies for the Google Chrome ecosystem, which the majority of the web users, will start in January. From there, it will ramp up, and the expectation is that in Q3. The phase out will completely start, meaning the cookies will finally actually go. That might still feel like we have some time, right? More than 6 months. But if you look at the testing on these solutions and the time it takes to roll them out and to get learnings and to get back on your feet on what it means for your KPIs, what it means from your targeting, the message really is hurry up. We're at 5 minutes to midnight, and we need to start moving. And obviously, none of us want to be working very hard between Christmas and New Year to get ready. So, slightly more worrying number from our end. We did a big research across 400 CMOs in Europe, and we asked them what does it mean if you lose third-party cookies for your business and for the acquisition side of it. 72% said it's going to be a major challenge, which was one of the highest ranking options in the list to choose from. So it's not for a lack of understanding the urgency, yet still, I think everybody needs to realize that the time is ticking. What does that cookieless world then really mean? Because it hangs above the market a bit as sort of a big event, but what does it really mean for acquiring your new customers? Because that is the area where, at least in our research, most CMOs saw by far the biggest impact on their business and the way they conduct their marketing. Well, let's say you're a marketer and you have a goal, right? I'm picking a random number just for illustrative purposes. Let's say you want to do 100,000 conversions. Some of you might be at big companies where you want to do that this month. Some of you might be at small companies where you want to do it this year. Doesn't really matter. You're trying to get to 100,000 transactions. To get to 100,000 transactions at the end of the funnel, you have quite a few steps to take, right? That customers orienting at the top of funnel where they're in this discovery phase, and you want to reach mostly new brands. You'll be looking at programmatic advertising, looking at affiliate programs, new to you customers that start at top of funnel. We take them a bit further, and we would like to move them from unknown to potential customers, where we take them into the interest phase, and you'll be looking at things like web personalization, retargeting, both in email and display, social, some mobile app installation for some of you, depending on what your funnel is shaped like, all with the goal of getting them to the final conversion stage of your funnel, where you're really looking at personalizing, linking them, and how to convert them to customers. And then obviously you want to be reconnecting with them. You want to be driving a bigger share of wallet, reconverting these people to buy more from you, create loyalty, had the typical loyalty loop kind of model. This funnel shouldn't be new to anyone, right? This is a typical normal way to do this, and you're trying to get to 100,000 transactions. But if you're doing that, you're looking at these kind of numbers, right? And they could vary a little bit, but rough normal sort of interaction rates, conversion rates. You're looking at about 2 million visitors with a normal conversion rate, 5% to get them into the final stage. That means you need about 10 million web visitors on your interest stage, which means you'll need about 20 million clicks on your ad campaigns at the top of it. And that is really the tricky part about digital marketing, right? The conversion rates between stages are relatively low, so we need very high volume interactions. And that is why everybody is relying so much on both cookies for tracking through this funnel, but also cookies for improving targeting, finding the right groups to really go with high volume numbers at the top. So we end up at that number of transactions that we want to have at the bottom of the funnel. Now, the big issue is everybody's dropping out, right? We see some early interaction. We show billions and billions of ads across the web, and people are dropping off left and right out of that funnel, all the way down the bottom of it. And that is also part of the way forward. If we're going to do this without cookies, and we need to be doing different ways of targeting, you're going to have to think about how do I solve for each of those steps? Where the bad news is there's not a magic solution. There's not a one tool or one ID or one kind of technology that you can use to fix all stages of the funnel. The good news is there are solutions for each of those steps. And that is why we jump back to that model and try to figure out how is your funnel impacted, how does it work, and what kind of solutions can you implement at each stage to get back a bit of your performance and to get back to the marketing numbers you're trying to achieve. Well, that means let's go through them one by one. On the discovery phase, there are a couple of new opportunities. One is the Google Topics API, which is a way of doing, let's say, similar targeting to what nowadays is cookie-based audiences by interest topics of the user, but it's built in an entirely different way. So instead of being driven by cookies and the way we track users, this is built around the user's device actually understanding which topic someone is interested in. They are then filtered, and there's a lot of math involved to make sure that these things cannot be used to identify the user, while they can be used to reach users that are quite interested in the different kind of products and offerings that you have. However, if you look at a typical, let's say, DMP-based approach to audiences today, you would have something in the range of 30,000, 40,000 different interest audiences available. Some DMPs even up to 80 or 90,000. The Topics API actually has 471 topics available. So the accuracy of targeting in that discovery phase is going to be reduced. It is a lot better than nothing, but you're going to be reducing the number of interactions you get from the same media budget on the discovery phase of the funnel. To fix part of that, we see a lot of interest and a lot of potential on lookalike-based targeting, which is using your own data and your own first-party interactions, your own high-value customers, to find similar ones across different platforms. Some platforms today are doing that in a cookie-based approach, but more and more platforms are starting to offer cookieless ways of still doing that, where you use your data, you exchange it with someone else, and you say, hey, find me similar users, right? The Meta ecosystem is quite big in this, but so are several of the retail media providers and some of the more traditional media solutions. The other one is almost a revival of the contextual side of advertising. It has not been very popular with all the audience-driven approaches, but we see several brands start to move towards doing a more contextual-based setup. So figuring out who is involved in my larger customer journey. If you are selling fashion items, you might be looking at other luxury products that are involved in the same journey. If you are selling car insurance, you might be interested in looking at car brands as one of the partners. Part of it as contextual with the publishers and media owners, and a growing part we also see second-party data. As a good example, if you are selling airline tickets, it would be very irrelevant to advertise to people that buy hotel bookings for certain destinations, and you can figure out across the funnel that there is a data exchange possible there. That almost comes back a bit to the very first slide we were talking about, understanding your customer and delivering something relevant, but making it much less cookie-driven and much more integrated. Then if we go a bit further and you get to the interest stage where you're starting to create a direct interaction with that consumer, our options start to be quite different, because here you actually have an interaction, you have a visitor on their website, so you can start using ID graphs or alternative ID solutions to identify that user, match with others, and interact with them. And we see the other Google Privacy Sandbox solution, which has been changing names a couple of times. It started live as Fledge, but nowadays it's called the Google Protected Audience API, which is essentially a solution in which your CDP provider, like us, can communicate with the client's device and make sure that you can do retargeting and follow-up based ads to that user, but without a cookie. So you're not putting a cookie on the browser device, but you're essentially asking the browser itself or the device to remember who you are and exchange that information. And it's moving a big part of the ad buying process from the let's say current ad exchanges towards an on-device kind of approach. So it's much more in control by the consumer and their device, creating a lot more privacy protections. But the end result is that you can actually still retarget or reconnect with users that you have had on your website or in a mobile interaction further down the funnel. And the other where we see a lot of potential is the third one on this list is on the web personalization on anonymous profiles, because a lot has been done on the personalization deeper down the funnel, but obviously if you're good at capturing your first-party data and the interactions that you see, you can claw back part of that lost performance by being more personal, more targeted on the anonymous ones. And there is a bit of a misconception here, because that is actually cookie-based, but those are not third-party cookies. So that is cookie-based on your own first-party data, which will remain completely intact with the upcoming changes. So you can gain a lot of performance here. And then if we go further down the funnel, we go into the conversion state. It's all about understanding how to use your first-party data. At this point, the customer has really started interacting with you. You have their profile information, you have the interactions, so you can really increase conversion here. And the interesting thing is that we see a lot of brands traditionally look much more at getting more volume in the discovery and interest stages. It's also, to be frank, simpler. You add more audiences, you add more media budget, you get more people. But if you're going to lose, let's say, 20% of your accuracy on the discovery and interest phases by the loss of cookies, because, for example, the Topics API isn't as accurate as your old audiences, or some of your users are not part of the ID graphs because it's a bit more strict on the permission, you can gain that back by getting a higher conversion rate deeper down the funnel. And that conversion rate is typically driven by using your own first-party and behavioral data more, which you're going to need anyway to do things like lookalike targeting in the discovery phase and like personalization in the interest phase. So it's almost low-hanging fruit to make sure that you improve your own conversion rates from across media and do more omni-channel integration there. So using whatever you've seen in the upper funnel to drive higher performance in the lower funnel, to, in the end, get to similar marketing results and similar KPIs with a different balance between your external data and your first-party data. And then finally, and this is where it becomes really important, we still see many brands, and we did a similar poll that we did at the start of this webinar recently in another one. We asked how many brands are actually capturing all that data and then storing it and making sure you can use it. And it still is shocking that so many brands have all this data that they just like let fly past them, let go to waste, instead of capturing it and using it for that reconnection phase. And reconnection, most brands are quite good at, right? It's sending follow-up emails, sending newsletters. But using that data in the rest of your funnel is becoming key. Because if you know who's purchasing before, you know which groups are relevant, you must use that for doing lookalike targeting on the discovery side, doing the personalization in the interest and the conversion phase, to make sure you understand buyers of this kind of product show this kind of behavior, and you can learn from that for better targeting. And there's really no excuse to be letting that data go to waste, because it's all free added performance to the rest of your funnel stages, which will bring you back to that fictional 100,000 transactions that we put at the beginning, while the rest of the performance might still decrease. So as a conclusion from our end, what does it mean for your acquisition funnel, and what do you need to do? So first of all, today, because I like to split this down a bit in actions, and remember, we have 38 days from today, and some of you are going to be watching this as a recording. You might have a little bit less than 38 days. But you need to start understanding what is the strategy if you split it down by those stages, and figure out what is the impact for you on those stages and different kind of interactions that you get, and what does it mean in terms of adjusting the strategy and the data setup. Right? If you lose cookies on the discovery stage, you're currently very heavy on audience targeting. That is a big impact, which means you have a high priority to select a solution there. And remember, there's not one solution. You need to evaluate each and every of those stages and steps to select the right kind of solution, and then join them back up into a single data strategy. Once you've done that, and I would almost take next week quite literal, you need to start investigating what you have in terms of first-party data. How much data are you today sort of letting slip through your fingers or disappear down some data lake that you're not using to improve the performance of the upper funnel? And if you've done that first analysis right, you'll know where the biggest problems are. You figured out where, in which stages you're lacking most of the data by the deprecation of cookies. So from here, you can figure out what kind of data do I need, and how do I use it to optimize that omnichannel funnel. How do I make better personalization, more targeted interactions to claw back the performance? And then next month, and again, that's quite literal because we have 38 days to go, you need to start experimenting with those alternatives. And I hope from all of these slides you figured out by now, that means multiple alternatives, not just one. It's not just implementing one ID provider and be done with it, or using the protected audience API that we see many clients now rolling out. It's really about selecting a solution for each of those funnel stages and making sure you run experiments with all of them. So you can almost start to iterate on that process and learn in which areas is it effective and where is it not, and make adjustments. So you need to get into a setting where you can run controlled experiments, where you can capture the data on them and figure out, is, for example, Topics API losing me 10% of accuracy or 40? Because that makes quite a difference. And we've seen similar numbers across different solutions. Similar for protected audience API. Currently, it's rolling out. People are trying it. Volume is still low, so there is an expectation that you will lose some performance there. How much can you get back by using the personalization in the later stages? So this funnel is going to be in motion. This is not a checkbox to put at the end of the year and say, okay, great, we are cookie proof and done with it. This is really a continuous process where you need to evaluate, we need to capture the data, analyze it, and see which of those solutions drive what kind of performance impact, either up or down by your funnel stages, and then adjust from there on the other sides that you have. So on to Q&A, and I saw we already received quite a few. So Kalina.
Well, yes, we did. And first of all, thanks, Thomas, for this very specific and presentation. I think we've been hearing from all over, and especially recently from Google, about the impact. But it's great to see actually some concrete suggestions of and really practical tips of what marketers should be aware of and where they can start looking at. So, on to the questions, and I'm going to invite again everyone. If you have any questions, we have I think like 15 minutes, maybe maximum in total for those. But I'm going to start with the ones that we already received. The first one, and Richard, Thomas, both of you feel free to pick it up. First one is about lookalike audiences. So one of our attendees says, I've been reading about solutions like Google Pair, but it seems that this can only be activated with email addresses. What about creating a lookalike audience on your website visitors of a specific page or a section of the website? Is this still going to be possible in a cookieless world, and how?
That's straight into the details.
Yes.
Yes and no. Some platforms will still allow that, and in those cases, it will be based on their identifiers instead of third-party cookies. And some platforms are more and more limiting that, right? The Google ecosystem is deliberately quite limited in their inbuilt lookalike capabilities, while Meta and then similar platforms are quite active on it. One of the ways where this can be done without cookies is if you look at the CDP space. There's a lot of work on how to do ID matching between those platforms, because traditionally you would take a third-party cookie that is used all across the web and it's an exchangeable identifier. But with these changes, we see that platforms are making their own identifiers, and those tend to be first-party identifiers. Meta has always had that. They're nearly forcing login on everyone. Google has launched a proposal that they call first-party sets, with which they can make multiple websites together become a first-party destination. You can imagine that will likely be the combination of YouTube, DoubleClick, and Google Search being a single first-party set, meaning they can manage identifiers in such a target ecosystem, and they would all be first-party identifiers exempt from the third-party cookie deprecation. So the way to do these kind of things is for you on your side to be identity matching with those systems. So instead of having a third-party cookie that you use across all, you're going to be building connectors and data matching sets between all of the target media platforms. And email addresses are obviously a very easy way to do that, but it can also be those first-party cookies of the platforms. So you have a web visitor, you capture in the CDP the first-party identifier from Facebook or Google. We built a match table, but they will become channel-specific, and they will be sort of almost built in to have privacy controls and a first-party interaction in there. Because you can only do that on the Meta side, for example, with users that have an account with Meta and that have given them permission to create those IDs. So it's creating a more direct interaction, and it's creating a bit more match tables and a more sort of complex technological setup on the advertiser side. But the end result is that you have a clearer, more transparent way of reaching users. And I don't expect to be too big of a loss of performance there.
No. And another question we got is actually regarding Meta, and do you know whether Google solutions such as Google Topics will be available on Meta to support awareness campaigns, ad campaigns on Facebook and Instagram?
Never say never, but very unlikely that Meta would join any of the Google Chrome solutions. Also because they don't really have this problem. Meta has logged in users on their own platform. So really the only challenge for Meta is matching your data, advertiser first-party data and advertiser behavioral data with their data set. They have released quite a lot of solutions for that, right? With CAPI and other different APIs that are being plugged into the CDPs. And I think we have several clients that have those things live already for months, even with cookies still available.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think as an addition on that, indeed, Meta is pushing hard for those server-side solutions. So that's what you see as well, that Meta really asks you to share more first-party information of your customers. So whether that's email address or first-party identifiers that you have, either IP address hashed or any other thing that you can share with Meta, they will push you for it to share it with them via their conversion API.
Yeah. They will find their ways. And Richard, thanks for joining the discussion, because we have a couple of questions for you, actually. One being about customers you help with, and what do you see them doing as first steps to prepare for the loss of third-party cookies?
Well, I think what you see quite often is customers turning to Google. And that is a logical thing to do because Google is the one pulling the plug. The only downside is the answer of Google is always don't worry, unless you really start asking questions to them. Okay, but should I really not worry? And then, yeah, then it turns out that you should worry, because Google, to some of our customers, literally said, well, we are not offering a solution. In fact, they can't, because there's regulations around it, and they can't be both the buyer and the seller. So there's multiple cases running and hanging above their heads that they can't actually provide a solution. So one of the things, as I said, what we see is they look at Google, but also more and more Google is providing the answer. Look at other ad tech vendors that can help you out in this situation, because we aren't helping you out. We can't help you out, actually.
Yeah, and also we hear I think during events that marketers would say that Google is going to fix it, right? So they kind of rely on Google to also be the solution to the change that they are implementing.
Yeah.
Which they have said that it's not going to be that easy. Okay, and we have another question here. To what extent do you believe in server-side cookies being a solution?
Very much so. That's part of the thing we were just discussing on doing that sort of match table building between your data and the platforms. Obviously, Meta, Google, every big media platform will be creating their own IDs, logged in users, or server-side cookies, probably all of it. Which means if you are doing the same and you're using your CDP to drive server-side cookies on your platform, you can be building that matching set between two first-party identifiers, which eliminates a big part of the impact, because now you actually have still a way of reaching. But as I said 2 questions ago, that will be on a per platform basis. So you will need to be doing more work on setting up the matches, configuring the CDP to pick those channels, compared to the more traditional cookie-based way where you can use almost one cookie for all.
Yeah, but I think in addition to that, the server-side cookie is, of course, a solution when it comes to customer recognition. So if you talk about further steps in the funnel, so not just advertising, retargeting for on-site recognition, personalization on your page, it makes perfect sense to start using a server-side cookie, because it allows you to recognize users over a longer course of time.
Yeah. And another question about DV360. The question is, what will happen? Do you know what will happen with DV360 and Google Ads? And do you expect them to have an alternative to continue remarketing programs, as it wouldn't make good business sense for them not to?
Yeah, I think that depends greatly on the outcomes of the current antitrust discussions. It was expected 12 months ago that Google would be joining the protected audience API, for example, from both sides. It has become quite clear that they won't. they cannot be on both sides of it, because it makes the antitrust risk for them a lot higher. So the expectation is that the rest of the ad tech industry will have to plug into that, and we see the ramp up month over month go quite quickly now for how many customers are actually on those platforms and starting to use, for example, protected audience API.
Yeah. And who do you guys see as types of businesses that will be most affected by the loss of third-party cookies? We have here also in the audience people from different businesses, and some of them are in retail. In some other cases, it will take longer for a purchase. In your experience, maybe Richard, where do you see the biggest maybe chunk of type of industries that are affected by the loss of third-party cookies?
I think it's not per se industry specific. I think it's very much related to your current activity. So as Tomas shared as the conclusion of his talk, start by investigating what are you currently doing, where are you spending most marketing budget, what technologies are you currently depending on, and if it turns out from that analysis that you're heavily focusing on retargeting based on third-party data, so programmatic advertising channels using third-party data, or spending a lot of money top of funnel based on interest groups that come from third-party data, etc., then you have a big problem. If your remarketing budget is, let's say, only 5% of your entire marketing budget, then of course there's way less impact. If you already focus on first-party data activation, then yeah, it's less of an impact than when you're heavily reliant on third-party data. So it's not industry specific. I would say it's more current marketing strategy specific, and that is really a case-to-case thing you should investigate yourself, or with the help of an agency partner or a technology partner or whatever.
Yeah, no, makes sense. So really, as Thomas, you presented, look at your funnel, your own marketing funnel. Like we presented an example of a practice, but of course it will differ per industry. We have a lot of questions, which is great. I think we can take two more, and if there's some in which we haven't answered, then we'll take it offline and we'll answer via email. But we have a couple of more minutes, and let's take two more questions. First one is, should we prepare for an increase in customer acquisition costs / our budgets not stretching as far as they did before from 2024?
I would say probably. I mean, there will be a loss of performance. If you do nothing, it will be a huge loss of performance. If you take mitigating actions, you implement things like Topics API, you start to use protected audience API, you add those server-side cookies, you create the match tables, set up a good data strategy. You could be back to normal, and of course, if you were not doing any of those things before, and you were not doing a lot of omnichannel personalization, you could be better than before. But if you're currently already quite far in all of those things, then it's really about mitigating a performance loss. And then, I think you can get close, but it's too early to tell. Looking at volumes from protected audience API. Moving up very rapidly. We don't know where they will stop and whether that will be at similar levels before loss of cookies or above it or below. That is completely unknown for everyone.
Yeah,
and I think another advice on that would be to align internally a bit more. What you see oftentimes is the silos between paid marketing and let's say owned marketing. Let's see where you can work together more to get more out of your own platforms and your own channels as well, not just focusing on getting the best out of your money as you already did in the past, but see how you can maybe spend a bit more time working together with other channels, working together with other teams to increase the performance of your funnel. So make sure less people drop off mid-funnel rather than trying to put more people in the top of the funnel.
Good, thanks, Richard. Rushing out for a few questions because there are really a lot of great questions. Okay, going back to using email addresses as a unique identifier for first-party data, how do you see this in terms of compliance, GDPR, when creating lookalike audiences or using this data for other steps in the funnel with other tools? Great question.
Indeed, and one that impacts nearly everyone. That's a big part of the steps you need to take. Obviously, if you want to use, let's say, CRM data, email addresses, loyalty program, whatever you have for lookalike audiences, interaction, personalization, all of that requires permission from the user in terms of GDPR. And in other parts of the world, we're seeing similar trends in the legal landscape. So if you currently have a lot of data, but you don't have any permission, then your most urgent step is actually thinking about what kind of permission to ask and how to do that. If you have that data, but your permission is quite broad, we've seen a couple of those cases, it is advisable to start to, let's say, almost embrace your compliance team and involve them on how to get that question worded correctly. And that's one of the reasons why we see a bright future for these sort of larger journey interactions and then more omni-channel journeys. It is a lot easier to ask permission for something that is a clear step in the journey than to ask, dear consumer, can we use your data for anything? And you'll get a no on that. Whereas if you say, hey, you've been buying X, Y, and Z from us, we have some recommendations for you, or we have some other options, or if you can present a benefit, you're much more likely to get that permission. But a good and clear data permission strategy has been mandatory for a couple of years now, but is now also becoming key to your own performance and business. So I think that absolutely requires attention.
Yeah, the internet world seems to be going in a more privacy-centric direction, which in the end of the day is great for consumers. And we as marketers need to find ways to work around it and still provide relevant content, while also, of course, respecting all the privacy around customer data. Final question, also a comment, great content, thanks. We have another CDP, but our account manager told us that they're waiting for more information from Google on their new Privacy Sandbox API before they can start to help us connect it. You said earlier that there is 38 days before 1% of browsers to sunset. Is this correct? Therefore, if you're connecting to these APIs already, then it's there. Then is there something they're missing?
Yeah, I think
it was in your third slide as well, Thomas, that the trials are there, which is on a public page of Google. So are they missing something? Yes.
Yes, and I think if you're still thinking about connecting with those at the moment from a technology perspective, then I would say you're more than a year behind, right? Those work groups have been running for far over a year already, and the moment to be running trials is right now. It's enabled in the browsers. The 1st of January point is not actually allowing you to start the trials. That is already today. It's about seeing what goes wrong if the trial is the only thing you can do. So currently you can do both cookies and, for example, Privacy Sandbox API. From January onward, for 1% of the traffic, there will be only Privacy Sandbox API, no cookies. So you will see things break and things go wrong. And from there, it will ramp up. But it's not like the Privacy Sandbox stuff is launching then. It's live today, and you should be using it.
Yeah. So in this sense, it's actually a great time to start experimenting, because then marketers and the performance marketers can compare, right? To see how things work, maybe get the tutorial to learn about the technology and compare results, maybe run little experiments on a small scale.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Well, with this, I think we've reached the end of this webinar. Thank you so much for answering all those questions. And again, we will continue the discussion after the webinar. A few people asked about the slides. We will send them afterwards, together with our newest ebook with best practices that our team prepared on the deprecation of first-party cookies. And with this, of course, connect with us, with Thomas, with Richard, with me. Happy to answer more questions and to stay in touch and continue the discussion on this very important and pressing topic. For now, we're wrapping up the session. Thanks everyone for joining us live. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Richard. And have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kalina.
Thank you. Bye-bye.